We are almost certainly live.
We hope, as usual, for the last couple weeks until we see the little eyeball that tells us that we're actually live. We don't know if we're okay. There
Hey,
it
we're
is.
live.
Yay,
We're
yes.
live.
Okay. It is Friday. Yay. I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son. And we did
Um,
say that right at the beginning last time, by the way.
yeah,
I
yeah. I was
realized.
getting ready to. I was getting ready to say that I will remember that we said that, so I
Ah,
don't make us do it again. Um, so
oh,
yeah,
get
my
your volume
memory
down?
sucks sometimes.
Did you get your volume
But
down? Because I think I heard it echo there for a little bit.
yeah, I
Okay,
just turned it
cool.
down. We are with John 6, Clash Kings. Congratulations to Sanji. He reclaimed his title as first.
Welcome
Um,
back, Jeff.
yes, definitely. Welcome back, Jeff. Um, and if you've watched any of these, you know we start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chat bird, and I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. Waving to the wall for Krista Crow. And take it away, Richard.
Yeah, at one point I switched from just reading highlights to reading like everything except sentences that I could cut without missing too much. Um, anyway, chapter Clash 51, John 6, introducing Egret. They could
Now,
see
do
the
we want to get into our
psycho.
psychoanalyzing of John real quick?
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
Uh, they could see the fire in the night, glimmering against the side of the mountain like a fallen star. It burned redder than the other stars and did not twinkle, though sometimes it flared up bright and sometimes dwindled down to no more than a distant spark, dull and faint. Half a mile ahead and 2,000 feet up, John judged, perfectly placed to see anything moving in the pass below. Watchers in the Skirling Pass, wondered the oldest among them. In the spring of his youth, he'd been squire to a king, so the Black Brothers still called him Squire Dallbridge. What is it man's greater fears, I wonder? If he knew they'd lit a fire, he'd flay the poor bastards, said Evan, a squat bald man muscled like a bag of rocks. Fire is life up here, said Corn Halfhand, but it can be death as well. By his command, they'd risked no open flames since entering the mountains. They ate cold salt beef, hard bread, and harder cheese, and slept clothed and huddled beneath a pile of cloaks and furs, grateful for each other's warmth. It made John remember cold nights long ago at Winterfell, when he'd shared a bed with his brothers. These men were brothers too, though the bed they shared was stone and earth. They'll have a horn, said Stone Snake. The half hand said, a horn they must not blow. That's a long, cruel climb by night, Edmund said as he eyed the distant spark through a cleft in the rocks that sheltered them. The sky was cloudless, the jagged mountains rising black on black until the very top, where their cold crowns of snow and ice shone palely in the moonlight. And a longer fall, said Corn Halfhand. 2 men, I think. There are like to be 2 up there, sharing the watch. Me, the ranger they called Stone Snake, had already shown that he was the best climber among them. It would have to be him. And me, said Jon Snow. You know, I think it's actually um, kind of logical that there'd be 3. Anyway,
Okay.
um, I'm just saying if you're sharing a watch all night, you know, usually you're two doesn't seem like quite enough. But anyway,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
was
you don't want it to. In the Navy, it would be a port and starboard watch, meaning one on, one off. Uh, uh, Generally, any watch station in the Navy was a 3-man watch. You have one on, one off going, and one oncoming, where the rotation would be. Never mind. All right.
no, it's all right. That's all right. I'm just saying, yeah, you think you'd want to at least 3 if their goal is to watch, day and night, right?
Yeah.
And so it feels like you probably want at least 3. So
Yeah.
I feel like 2 is a little optimistic guess here.
Yeah. My little explanation was me agreeing with you. I
Yeah,
think
that
it'd be
there'd be at
3.
least 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corn Halfhand looked at him. The wolf will remain with us, Corn said. White fur is seen too easily by moonlight. He turned to Sniff Snake. When it's done, throw down a burning brand. We'll come when we see it fall. No better time to start than now, said Stone Snake. They each took a long coil of rope. Stone Snake carried a bag of iron spikes as well, and a small hammer with its head wrapped in thick felt. Their garrons they left behind, along with their helms, mail, and ghost. Jon knelt and let the direwolf nuzzle him before they set off. Stay, he commanded. I'll be back for you. Stone Snake took the lead. He was a short, wiry man, near 50, and gray of beard, but stronger than he seemed. He had the best night eyes of anyone Jon had ever known. By day, the mountains were blue-gray, brushed with frost, but once the sun vanished behind the jagged peaks, they turned black. Now the rising moon had limned them in white and silver. So white and silver seems kind of starkish, for whatever that's worth. I always
Yeah.
like to look at moonlight and what it's doing, just to see if there's anything interesting symbolically there.
Yeah. I also find it interesting that what's his name? Stone Snake
Mhm.
seems perfectly suited just for this task. He has the best night eyes that Jon is. I mean, I mean,
I find it a little weird that somebody who's north of 40 has the best eyes. That's kind of strange, but anyway.
yeah, I mean, a job for every tool, tool for every job. I mean,
Yeah, it's just usually your vision starts to at least change at 40. I know he probably, it wouldn't be that unusual for you to still have good distance vision and night vision and just not be able to see as well up close for reading
yeah, I
purposes.
think I was close to 40 when I had to get glasses. So
Yeah, it's not that unusual, but usually right around 40 is when your eyes start to change. The Black brothers moved through black shadows amidst black rocks, working their way up a steep, twisting trail as their breath frosted in the black air. Stone Snake seemed to know where to put his feet as if by instinct, but Jon needed to be more careful on the broken, uneven ground. The Skirling Pass was really a series of passes, a long, twisting course that went up around a succession of icy, wind-carved peaks and down through hidden valleys that seldom saw the sun. The wind cut like a knife up here and shrilled in the night like a mother mourning her slain children. Tumbled shelves of rock often overhung the trail, fringed with hanging icicles that looked like long white teeth from a distance. No others have lost their children at this point, so I guess we can call that foreshadowing. And we often see the land personified and hostile, right?
right, and also giving either human or animalistic traits.
Right, and usually of a ferocious uh, kind, right? So which probably is meant to imply the idea that the White Walkers of the Wood are the land fighting back.
Yep.
Pod
Hey,
says
Bob.
my stepfather had eagle eyes. He could read street signs I could barely see well into his 60s. Yeah,
Damn. Okay.
yeah, and so it would make some sense that Stoneskin could Stone Snake. What's his name? Yeah, Stone Snake. Stone Snake. Sorry, Elric Stoneskin just put out his fourth video. I haven't watched it yet, but he just put it out this morning. Anyway.
Oh, you said Stone Skin's got another video out?
Yeah, Elric Stoneskin has a new video just came out this morning.
Okay, cool. I'll watch it when we get up here.
Part 4. Yet even so, Jon Snow was not sorry he had come. There were wonders here as well. He'd seen sunlight flashing on icy thin waterfalls as they plunged over the lips of sheer stone cliffs, and a mountain meadow full of autumn wildflowers, blue cold snaps and bright scarlet frost fires, and stands of piper's grass in russet and gold. He'd peered down ravines so deep and black they seemed certain to end in some hell, and he had ridden his garron over a wind-eaten bridge of natural stone with nothing but sky to either side. Eagles nested in the heights and came down to hunt the valleys, circling effortlessly on great blue-gray wings that seemed almost part of the sky. Once he'd watched a shadow cat stalk a ram, flowing down the mountainside like liquid smoke until it was ready to pounce. I couldn't say that 5 times fast. Now it is our turn to pounce. He wished he could move as sure and silent as that shadow cat and kill as quickly. Longclaw was sheathed across his back, but he might not have room to use it. He carried dirk and dagger for closer work. They will have weapons as well, and I am not armored. He wondered who would prove the shadow cat by night's end and who the ram. For a long way they stayed to the trail, following its twists and turns as it snaked along the side of the mountain, upward, ever upward. Sometimes the mountain folded back on itself and they lost sight of the fire, but sooner or later it would always reappear. In places, Jon had to put his back to the cold stone and shuffle along sideways like a crab, inch by inch. Even where the track widened, it was treacherous. There were cracks big enough to swallow a man's leg, rubble to stumble over, hollow places where the water pooled by day and froze hard by night. One step and then another, John told himself. One step and then another, and I will not fall. Of course, we're going
That
to get this with Sam later, right?
yeah. That's
So
what I was getting ready to say.
yeah, so it's certainly worth highlighting. He had not shaved since leaving the Fist of the First Men, and the hair on his lip was soon stiff with frost. 2 hours into the climb, the wind kicked up so fiercely that it was all he could do to hunch down and cling to the rock, praying he would not be blown off the mountain. One step and then another, he resumed when the gale subsided. One step and then another, and I will not fall. Soon they were high enough so that looking down was best not considered. The mountain is your mother, Stone Snake had told him during an easier climb a few days past. Cling to her. Press your face up against her teats, and she won't drop you. John had made a joke of it, saying how he'd always wondered who his mother was, but never thought to find her in the Frostfangs. It did not seem nearly so amusing now. One step and then another, he thought, clinging tight. The narrow track ended abruptly where a massive shoulder of black granite thrust out from the side of the mountain. After the bright moonlight, its shadow was so black that it felt like stepping into a cave. Straight up here, the ranger said in a quiet voice. We want to get above them. He peeled off his gloves, tucked them through his belt, tied one end of his rope around his waist, the other end around John. Follow me when the rope grows taut. The ranger did not wait for an answer, but started at once, moving upward with fingers and feet faster than John would have believed. The long rope unwound slowly. John watched him closely, making note of how he went, where he found each handhold. When the last loop of hemp uncoiled, he took off his own gloves and followed, much more slowly. Stone Snake had passed the rope around the smooth spike of rock he was waiting on, but as soon as John reached him, he shook it loose and was off again. This time there was no convenient cleft when he reached the end of their tether, so he took out his felt-headed hammer and drove Spike deep into a crack in the stone with a series of gentle taps. Soft as the sounds were, they echoed off the stone so loudly that John winced with every blow, certain that the wildlings must hear them too. When the spike was secure, Stone Snake secured the rope to it. John started after him. Suck on the mountain's teat, he reminded himself. Don't look down. Keep your weight above your feet. Don't look down. Look at the rock in front of you. There's a good handhold, yes. Don't look down. I can catch a breath on that ledge there. All I need to do is reach it. Never look down. Once his foot slipped as he put his weight on it, and his heart stopped in his chest, but the gods were good, and he did not fall. He could feel the cold seeping off the rock into his fingers, but he dared not don his gloves. Gloves would slip, no matter how tight they seemed. Cloth and fur moving between skin and stone, and up here that could kill him. His burned hand was stiffening up on him. Soon it began to ache. Then he ripped open his thumbnail somehow, and after that he left smears of blood wherever he put his hand. He hoped he still had all his fingers by the end of the climb. Up they went, and up, black shadows creeping across the moonlit wall of rock. Anyone down on the floor of the pass could have seen them easily, but the mountain hid them from the view of the wildlings by their fire. They were close now, though. John could sense it. Even so, he did not think of the foes who were waiting for him, all unknowing, but of his brother at Winterfell. Bran used to love to climb. I wish I had a 10th part of his courage. The wall was broken 2/3 of the way up by a crooked fissure of icy stone. Stone Snake reached down a hand to help him up. He had donned his gloves again, so John did the same. The ranger moved his head to the left. The two of them crawled along the shelf 300 yards or more until they could see the dull orange glow beyond the lip of the cliff. The wildlings had built their watchfire in a shallow depression above the narrowest part of the pass, with the sheer drop below and rock behind to shelter them from the worst of the wind. That same windbreak allowed the Black Brothers to crawl within a few feet of them, creeping along on their bellies until they were looking down on the men they must kill. One was asleep, curled up tight and buried beneath a great mound of skins. John could see nothing of him but his hair, bright red in the firelight. The second sat close to the flames, feeding with twigs and branches and complaining of the wind in a querulous tone. The third watched the pass, but there was little to see, only a vast bowl of darkness ringed by the snowy shoulders of the mountains. It was the watcher who wore the horn. 3. For a moment, John was uncertain. There was only supposed to be 2. One was asleep, though. Whether there was 2 or 3 or 20, he still must do what he had come to do. Stone Snake touched his arm, pointed at the wildling with the horn. John nodded toward the one by the fire. It felt queer picking a man to kill. Half the days of his life had been spent with sword and shield training for this moment. Did Robb feel this way before his first battle? He wondered. There was no time to ponder the question. Stone Snake moved as fast as his namesake, leaping down on the wildlings in a rain of pebbles. John slid Longclaw from its sheath and followed. It all seemed to happen in a heartbeat. Afterward, John could admire the courage of the wildling to reach first for his horn instead of his blade. He got it to his lips, but before he could sound it, Stone Snake knocked the horn aside with a swipe of his short sword. Jon's man leapt to his feet, thrusting into his face with a burning brand. He could feel the heat of the flames as he flinched back. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the sleeper stirring and knew he must finish his man quick. When the brand swung again, he bowled into it, swinging the bastard sword with both hands. The Valyrian steel sheared through leather, fur, wool, and flesh. But when the wildling fell, he twisted, ripping the sword from Jon's grasp. On the ground, the sleeper sat up beneath his furs. Jon slid his dirk free, grabbing the man by the hair and jamming the point of the knife up under his chin as he reached for his. No, her. His hand froze. A girl. A watcher, said Stone Snake. A wildling. Finish her. Jon could see fear and fire in her eyes. Blood ran down her white throat from where the point of his dirk had pricked her. One thrust and it's done, he told himself. He was so close he could smell onion on her breath. She's no older than I am. Something about her made him think of Arya, though they looked nothing at all alike. Will you yield, he asked, giving the dirk a half turn, and if she doesn't? Was the reference to Bran's courage foreshadowing recognition of Bran's escape from Winterfell and his road ahead? Yeah, maybe that it requires something like 10 times Jon's courage, then it's possible.
Hey, James is
so, hey, in shadow of the moon, my sorrows bleed. Hey guys, thank the gods, the old and the new. Happy Friday, fam. So I wanted to pause here for our discussion, right? So something about her made him think of Arya, right? And we were just speculating before off camera before the stream started that it's interesting that Arya is the only non-redheaded sibling that Jon has, and yet she reminds him of Arya. And what does this say about Jon?
Well, it started with Richard saying that there are those that think Jon has a secret crush or infatuation or whatever with Cat.
Right.
And then he pointed out that Ygritte was more like, I said that maybe it's a secret infatuation or whatever with Sansa. And then Richard said that Ygritte is more reminds him of Arya. I'm like, well, what if it's an amalgamation of Arya and Sansa? So
and maybe Cat, right?
Yeah, or a little bit of Cat
all the women in his
there,
family. Basically, all the women in his family, and what does this say about him? I don't know.
Yeah, I had never heard that before, so it kind of blew my mind a little bit. So I enjoyed the speculation on Jon's infatuation. It was definitely a new topic that I've never.
Yeah, I don't know how comfortable it is, but okay. I yield. Her words steamed in the cold air. Yes, have to have that Trinity. You're our captive, then. He pulled the dirk away from the soft skin of her throat. Corin said nothing of taking captives, said Stone Snake. He never said not to. Jon let go of his grip on the girl's hair, and she scuttled backwards away from them. She's a spear wife. Stone Snake gestured at the long, hafted axe that lay beside her sleeping furs. She was reaching for that when you grabbed her. Give her half a chance and she'll bury it between your eyes. I won't give her half a chance. Jon kicked the axe well out of the girl's reach. Do you have a name? Ygritte. Her hand rubbed at her throat and came away bloody. She stared at the wetness. Sheathing his dirk, he wrenched Longclaw free from the body of the man he'd killed. You are my captive, Ygritte. I gave you my name. I'm Jon Snow. She flinched. An evil name. So I do think the best guess for this is that the 13th Lord Commander's name was not as effectively erased north of the wall.
Yeah.
The fact that there's specifically a name that's considered evil. Yeah. The original book idea that Jerem pitched was Jon, Tyrion, and Arya in a love triangle, right?
Yes.
A bastard name, he said. My father was Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell. The girl watched him warily, but Stone Snake gave a mordant chuckle. It's the captive supposed to tell things, remember? The Ranger thrust a long branch into the fire. Not that she will. I've known wildlings to bite off their own tongues before they'd answer a question. When the end of the branch was blazing merrily, he took 2 steps and flung it out over the pass. It fell through the night, spinning until it was lost to sight. I think it's the Order of the Green Hand has pointed out that this is actually kind of a lie because they specifically have a person brought along to interrogate, and they've gotten information out of wildlings and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't Corn Half End say that they interrogated
Yeah,
a
they talk about how
wildling
they
on
visit.
the way
Right,
to
right,
the Christmas
exactly.
Richmond?
So
Yeah.
so anyway, and James says, "Love this chapter." You ought to burn them you killed, said Egret. Need a bigger fire for that, and big fires burn bright. Stunsnake turned, his eyes scanning the black distance for any spark of light. Are there more wildlings close by? Is that it? Burn them, the girl repeated stubbornly, or it might be you'll need them swords again. John remembered Dode Othor in his cold black hands. Maybe we should do as she says. There are other ways. Stone Snake knelt beside the man he'd slain, stripped him of cloak and boots and belt and vest, then hoisted the body over one thin shoulder and carried it to the edge. He grunted as he tossed it over. A moment later, they heard a wet, heavy smack well below them. By then, the ranger had the second body down to the skin and was dragging it by the arms. John took the feet, and together they flung the dead man out into the blackness of the night. Egret watched and said nothing. We do get a lot of flying corpses in this story, don't we?
Yeah.
She was older than he'd thought at first, John realized. Maybe as old as 20, but short for her age. Bandy-legged, with a round face, small hands, and a pug nose. Her shaggy mop of red hair stuck out in all directions. She looked plump as she crouched there, but most of that was layers of fur and wool and leather. Underneath all that, she could be as skinny as Arya. Were you sent to watch for us? John asked her. You and others. Stunsnake, Stunsnake warmed his hands over the fire. What waits beyond the pass? The free folk. How many? Hundreds and thousands, more than you ever saw, Crow. She smiled. Her teeth were crooked, but very white. She doesn't know how many. Why come here? Egret fell silent. What's in the frostpangs that your king could want? You can't stay here. There's no food. She turned her face away from him. Do you mean to march on the wall? When? She stared at the flames as if she could not hear him. Do you know anything of my uncle Benjamin Stark? Egret ignored him. Stunsnake laughed. If she spits out her tongue, don't say I didn't warn you. A low rumbling growl echoed off the rock. Shadowcat, John knew at once. As he rose, he heard another, closer at hand. Pulled his sword and turned, listening. They won't trouble us, Egret said. It's the dead they've come for. Cats can smell blood 6 miles off. They'll stay near the bodies till they've eaten every last stringy shred of meat, cracked the bones to the marrow. John could hear the sounds of their feeding echoing off the rocks. It gave him an uneasy feeling. The warmth of the fire made him realize how bone-tired he was, but he dared not sleep. He'd taken a captive, and it was on him to guard her. Were they your kin? He asked her quietly. The two we killed? No more than you are. Me? He frowned. What do you mean?
Did you catch that?
Snow/other.
Are they your kin? And she says no more than you are. So if she was a spirit wife and one
Oh
of
yeah.
them was her husband, he just captured her. So now these are
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, she's actually referring to the fact that she's actually referring to the fact that Starks have blood of Baal as far as she's concerned, and so
right.
she considers him to be her kin. And then you could also say that based on our previous conversation, that the idea that they're kin. No more than you are. Me? You frowned. What do you mean? You said you were the bastard of Winterfell. I am. Who was your mother? Some woman. Most of them are. Someone had said that to him once. He did not remember who. Wasn't that Tyrion?
I believe so.
Noise. She smiled again, a flash of white teeth. And she never sung you the song of the Winter Rose? I never knew my mother, or any such song. Bael the Bard made it, said Egret. He was king beyond the wall a long time back. All the free folk know his songs, but might be you don't sing them in the south. Winterfell's not in the south, John objected. Yes, it is. Everything below the wall is south to us. Never thought of it that way. I suppose it's all in where you're standing. Aye, Egret agreed. It always is. Tell me, John urged her. It would be hours before Corn came up, and a story would help keep him awake. I want to hear this tale of yours. Might be you won't like it much. I'll hear it all the same. Brave black crow, she mocked. Well, long before he was king over the free folk, Bael was a great raider. Stonesnake gave a snort. A murderer, robber, and raper is what you mean. That's all in where you're standing too, Egret said. The Stark and Winterfell wanted Bael's head, but never could take him, and the taste of failure galled him. One day in his bitterness, he called Bael a craven who preyed only on the weak. When word of that got back, Bael vowed to teach the Lord a lesson. So he scaled the wall, skipped down the King's Road, and walked into Winterfell one winter's night with harp in hand, naming himself Skigeric of Skagos. Sorry, Sigeric. Sigeric means deceiver in the old tongue that the first men spoke and the giants still speak. North or south, singers always find a ready welcome, so Bale ate at Lord Stark's own table and played for the Lord in his high seat until half the night was gone. The old songs he played, and new ones he made himself. He played and sang so well that when he was done, the Lord offered to let him name his own reward. All I ask is a flower, Bale answered, the fairest flower that blooms in the gardens of Winterfell. Now, keep that in mind when we get to the end of this chapter, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Can't help but love him. Because anyway, now as it happened, the winter roses had only then come into bloom, and no flowers so rare nor precious. So the Stark sent to his glass gardens and commanded that the most beautiful of the winter roses be plucked for the singer's payment. So it was done. When the morning came, the singer had vanished. So had Lord Brandon's maiden daughter. Her bed they found empty, but for the pale blue rose that Bale had left on the pillow where her head had lain. Jon never heard this tale before. Which Brandon was this supposed to be? Brandon the Builder lived in the Age of Heroes thousands of years before Bale. There was Brandon the Burner and his father Brandon the Shipwright, but this was Brandon the Daughterless, Egret said sharply. Would you hear the tale or no? He scowled. Go on. Lord Brandon had no other children. At his behest, the Black Crows flew forth from their castles in the hundreds, but nowhere could they find any sign of Bale or this maid. For most a year they searched, till the Lord lost heart and took to his bed. It seemed as though the line of Starks was at its end. But one night, as he lay waiting to die, Lord Brandon heard a child's cry. He followed the sound and found his daughter back in her bedchamber, asleep with a babe at her breast. Bale had brought her back? No, they'd been in Winterfell all the time, hiding with the dead beneath the castle. The maid loved Bale so dearly she bore him a son, the song says. Though if truth be told, all the maids loved Bale in them songs he wrote. Be that as it may, what's certain is that Bale left the child in payment for the rose he plucked unasked, and that the boy grew to be the next Lord Stark. So there it is. You have Bale's blood in you, same as me. So this sure sounds like Rhaegar. I mean, we even have the blue symbolism of the blue rose for the girl, right? Casey tries hard to make everything fit, but I personally like Arthur with Val after birth and Dorne, just because of the significance of Dorne and the idea that the oldest daughter would be queen. See Triplet Guards episode 6 and 7. It never happened, Jon said. She shrugged. Might be it did, might be it didn't. It is a good song, though. My mother used to sing it to me. She was a woman too, Jon Snow, like yours. She rubbed her throat where his dirk had cut her. The song ends when they find the babe, but there is a darker end of the story. 30 years later, when Bale was king beyond the wall and led the free folk south, it was young Lord Stark who met him at the frozen ford. He killed him, for Bale would not harm his own son when they met sword to sword. So the son slew the father instead, said Jon. Chris the Crow says, too well, we're about to do a couple more here. So George is telling us he's doing Oedipus in the same book he calls Jaime the Kinslayer. Oedipus specifically has incestuous sex with his new queen after slaying his father, the king. See Triplet Targaryens, episode 5. Aye, she said, but the gods hate kinslayers even when they kill unknowing. When Lord Stark returned from the battle and his mother saw Bale's head upon his spear, she threw herself from a tower in her grief. Her son did not long outlive her. One of his lords peeled the skin off him and wore him for a cloak. Your Bale was a liar, he told her, certain now. I don't get why he's certain with that, right? Now,
Yeah.
we know Starks have ended this way, according to legends and things. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's kind of weird that makes him sure.
Well, I mean,
No.
it's like you've said before, when people are absolutely certain of something, they're generally wrong. So
True. No, Egret said, but a bard's truth is different than yours or mine. Anyway, you asked for the story, so I told it. She turned away from him, closed her eyes, and seemed to sleep. Dawn and Corrin Halfhand arrived together. The black stones had turned to gray, and the eastern sky had gone indigo when Stone Snake spied the rangers below, wending their way upward. Jon woke his captive and held her by the arm as they descended to meet them. Thankfully, there was another way off the mountain to the north and west, along paths much gentler than the one that had brought them up here. They were waiting in a narrow defile when their brothers appeared, leading their garrons. Ghost raced ahead at first scent of them. John squatted to let the direwolf close his jaws around his wrist, tugging his hand back and forth. It was a game they played. When he glanced up, he saw Egret watching him with eyes as wide and white as hen's eggs.
Hey, before you go any farther,
Charles says 4.
What they say?
Denial of truth is a reaction, not of thought. That's why Jamie is going to die.
You hush your mouth, Charles. Dawn and Corn Halfhand arrived together. I know there are those out there that throw around a different scenario on
right.
who.
Right.
The theory being that Corn Halfhand is actually Sir Arthur Dane and Mance is Rhaegar. I don't subscribe to that, but like I said, I like many theories and
so it's worth pointing out that there's evidence there, right?
Definitely worth pointing out.
And you could argue that Stark-like symbolism of the mountain, where we're told that the mountain is Jon's mother, and so you could argue that that's implying that it's his mother and not his father. That's the Stark. You can do the R plus L equals J argument there.
Yeah.
Corn Halfhand made no comment when he saw the prisoner. There were 3, Stonesank told him, no more than that. We passed 2, Evans said, or what the cats had left of them. He eyed the girl sourly, suspicion plain on his face. She yielded, Jon felt compelled to say. Corn's face was impassive. Do you know who I am? Corn Halfhand. The girl looked half a child beside him, but she faced him boldly. Tell me true. If I fell into the hands of your people and yielded myself, what would it win me? A slower death than elsewise. The big ranger looked to Jon. We have no food to feed her, nor can we spare a man to watch her. The way before us is perilous enough, lad, said Squire Dallbridge. One shot when we need silence, and every man of us is doomed. Evan drew his dagger. A steel kiss will keep her quiet. Jon's throat was raw. He looked at them all helplessly. She yielded herself to me. Then you must do what needs to be done, Corn Halfhand said. You're the blood of Winterfell and a man of the Night's Watch. He looked to the others. Come, brothers, leave him to it. It'll go easier for him if we do not watch. And he led them up the steep, twisting trail toward the pale pink glow of the sun, where it broke through a mountain cleft. Before very long, only Jon and Ghost remained with the wilding girl. That's pretty funny, right? Because it's clearly not the case that it's going to go easier for him if they leave. I mean, it's kind of looking back at it, kind of obvious that he's curious what Jon will do here, and that he actually doesn't have that strong an opinion of what needs to be done.
Well, right. I mean, just what he says afterwards, he specifically words it to where, one, it gives Jon an out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that one, letting her go is I don't know, man. It's definitely a hard test.
Yep. He thought Egret might try to run, but she only stood there waiting, looking at him. You never killed a woman before, did you? When he shook his head, she said, We die the same as men. But you don't need to do it. Mance would take you, I know he would. There's secret ways. Them crows would never catch us. I'm as much a crow as they are, Jon said. She nodded, resigned. Will you burn me after? I can't. The smoke might be seen. That's so, she shrugged. Well, there's worse places to end up than the belly of a shadow cat. He pulled Longclaw over his shoulder. Aren't you afraid? Last night I was, she admitted. But now the sun's up. She pushed her hair aside to bare her neck and knelt before him. Strike hard and true, Crow, or I'll come back and haunt you. Longclaw was not so long or heavy a sword as his father's ice, but it was Valyrian steel all the same. He touched the edge of the blade to mark where the blow must fall, and Egret shivered. That's cold, she said. Go on, be quick about it. This is a black sword that's cold.
Ooh.
Isn't that the line for the Dornishman?
I can't remember.
I think it's something. I think it says his kiss was, the sword was black and this kiss was cold or something like that. Anyway, I'm gonna have to go back and look at those words. But this kind of sounds like it could potentially be a clue that he's a Dornishman.
Ooh. Hold on a second. I gotta write that down.
Anyway, I just thought of that. I was like, oh wait a minute. I think that they specifically talk about the Dornishman having a cold sword.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll find it before I do.
And Charles says, yes, it is.
Okay. I'm not talking to Charles, so.
He raised Longclaw over his head, both hands tight around the grip. One cut with all my weight behind it. He could give her a quick, clean death, at least. He was his father's son, wasn't he? Wasn't he? So, do it, she urged him after a moment. Bastard, do it. I can't stay brave forever. When the blow did not fall, she turned her head to look at him. Jon lowered his sword. Go, he muttered. Egot stared. Now, he said, before my wits return, go. She went. He who passes the sentence must swing the sword is not about coldness. It's about mercy. He is his father's son. As Ned says, mercy is never a mistake. We talked about it, Charles said. Up next, Clash 52, Sansa 4, Sansa's first flowering. And what did we just talk about? We just talked about the flower of the maid of Winterfell.
Yeah. I guess it is perfect timing.
Yeah, that's what made me think of that.
And for the record, Charles, Jamie's going to save everyone. He is the Superman of this story. He will shoot lasers from his eyes and fly over the wall. No, never mind.
I brought up ELP before, and just particularly how Carnival 9 reminds me of the House of the Undying, right? Well, in 1970 they had Lucky Man. Actually, it was a song that Lake wrote when he was 12, but it's about a guy who's so rich that his mattress is covered in gold, and he went to fight wars for his country and his king. Of his honor and his glory, the people would sing, right? Anyway, so it actually starts off talking about how he has white horses, but anyway, are you there, God? It's me, Sansa. Never. Anyway, so I do wonder if honor and glory could potentially be a reference to Lucky Man, because right, Jamie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean the song starts off with about how he has white horses, and then how even his mattress is covered with gold, right? Anyway, that's probably not a good sign for Jamie's ability to get to the end of the story.
Hey. No. You hush too. I'm not talking to you, Richard. That's it.
Anyway.
I want a divorce. I don't even want to talk to you no more.
You do realize that his dream sort of implies that Brienne will outlive him? James says makes sense.
James, everybody, come on. I'm not talking to nobody.
It's kind of heavily implied here, dude.
Next thing, Jeff and Sanji and Chris all jump on the bandwagon.
Well, maybe all the foreshadowing of Jamie being dead is just so that he can be fake dead at the beginning of Winds.
Yeah, there's plenty of people that are supposed to be dead that are still alive. So
yeah, that's my point. Is maybe all the foreshadowing of Jamie's death is just because he's going to be fake dead. Because I mean, I do think he's going to start off Winds fake dead, which is unfortunate because it means we probably won't get a Jamie chapter for quite a while. We'll probably get a Brienne chapter thinking about how he's dead and talking about how he's dead and all that. Sorry about Arc-a-Once. What about that Arc-a-Once?
It is what it is.
He threw a kid out a window and threatened to shoot a baby from a catapult. Those aren't his biggest sin. His biggest sin is clearly Jory. He did. Don't give him hopes, Richard. Yeah, it's probably false hope. Well, cover his ears. No Jamie slander. How can you not love Jory? Come on.
Yeah, I mean,
Jory's his biggest sin. I mean, even Ned and Catelyn understand why he threw Bran out the window, but he just kills Jory just to annoy Ned.
I don't want to talk about this no more. This is a Jon chapter. Why are we talking about Jamie? Come on.
Oh, there were lots of references in this one.
All right. I'm glad we're not talking next week just because of today. I need a week break from you, Richard. I can't.
All right, fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Well, have a good week, everybody.
Yeah, look, I'll put you this way: if Jamie does die, that my biggest we won't have a Jamie chapter if Jamie dies. That would be my biggest sadness
Yeah, I
is
mean
not having a Jamie chapter.
that's my problem with the
Yeah,
theory that he's likely going to start off the book dead is that George is probably going to leave him dead for a while. Which I mean,
yeah,
he specifically has said that Winds of Winter is about is not going to be not going to be the fun, happy, jokey books of the past, right?
right.
It's going to be a lot darker, and so we probably don't get a Jamie chapter for a while. That's unfortunate because
You
his
too,
art
lady
are the
pencil.
most fun.
Come on now. No, trust me, I am not as big a Jamie fan as I pretend to be.
No, he certainly is the most fun to read, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's part of it's because George is in that mood when he's writing them. Um, like the heir to the twins has that that ought not prove much difficulty. It's one of the funniest lines in the whole series.
yeah,
But I think it's part of it. Part of the reason why it happens, I think, is because he's put his head into Jamie writing mode, right? And
yeah.
Jamie writing mode is just hilarious.
Well, I mean, anytime that he puts himself solely in the mind of the characters, those are great chapters,
Oh yeah,
regardless of which character it is. So, but yeah, I
yeah,
think he's definitely pegged the way he wants Jamie to come across and the way Jamie thinks. And I mean, George R. R. Martin might have multiple personalities, not
right,
bashing multiple personalities, but
right.
the way he can jump into each character when he's writing that chapter.
Right. So
Um,
you got Arya where everything is stupid, and you've got Jamie where he's just snarky all the whole time and so forth. And George is clearly in those modes when he's writing those chapters. And that's probably why
exactly.
those are some of the most fun.
Right.
Thanks, Sanji. Sanji, this is great live today. Have a great weekend, gents. Chat. And James is like, yeah, the coldness of winter.
Golden winner, without a doubt. Yeah, I had a blast on this one, especially when anytime we can laugh and joke and it makes for a good live stream. So
Yeah, and I know you're joking.
yeah. All right. Next week there will be no live streams. Also, next week is 4th of July. Um,
Yeah, happy Independence
I
Day.
know. I will miss everybody next week for sure. It was awesome live stream today. John chapters are good, especially north of the wall. They're good. Um, I do think that he definitely did the Wilding wedding ceremony with Egret.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, of course, it's not consummated yet.
But
But
she
he's
certainly believes it and explains it to him. So
yeah,
happy Fourth,
yeah,
guys. This Charles.
yeah, definitely happy for the guy.
Thanks, Charles.
Everybody, please. I mean, stay safe. Boo. I'm assuming boo on the next week. Yeah. But everybody, please stay safe. I know there's a lot of accidents for the 4th of July.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to drink responsibly.
Yeah,
Um,
first time I was ever in the hospital. It was the guy in the bed in my room was somebody who's blown his blown his hand off with firecracker.
yeah. Definitely don't do that. We had a guy this is there's a guy my senior year that had in a hunting accident with his father had shot off all the top of his fingers, so all he had left was that first. It was even worse than Davos. He had that very first section, so he lost the first and second section that left that third section next to the hand. And he preferred everybody to call him Nubby because that's all he had was the 4 nubs.
Anyway,
Yeah,
James,
we definitely
glad I
missed you
caught you.
too, man. Stay safe. All right.
Glad I
Well,
caught you
that's
guys
it.
today. Awesome stream. Have a glorious Fourth, likewise. And Jeff missed everyone. Stay safe and ready for next week.
So, all right. Well, nice. Our endings are usually nice, short, and sweet, unless I keep rambling on. So I'll try not to do that. Everybody have a good week. Stay safe. Call him Davos. Now. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
y'all take.
I have a coworker who lost a tip of one of his fingers in a motorcycle accident. So I mentioned that to him. I was like, it's like, do you watch Game of Thrones? He's like, no. I'm like, well, one of the coolest characters on there is a guy who's had his ends of his fingers cut off. Anyway,
All right.
yep.
Y'all be good. Stay safe. We got up to 8 people today. That's awesome for us. So we appreciate it. So y'all be good. Take care. Enjoy your 4th.
Have a good one.
Bye, Richard. Stay safe.